We call to order the Colerain Township Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, March the 16th, 2021. If everybody would stand and please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Mr. Iona, could we have a roll call, please?
We can. Commissioner Faring. Here. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner McMullen. Sir. Commissioner Gehring.
Here.
And Commissioner Grody.
Here. We extend a word of welcome. Everybody, if you would turn on your microphones and silence your telephone devices, and we welcome everyone who's present here this evening, and for those who are joining us at home this evening. We have no minutes at this time to approve. Is there any public address, Mr. Iona?
There is no public address at this time.
Okay. So then let's move on to item 4, final development plan for case ZA 2021-03 Dunlap Woods. Mr. Iona, does staff have a presentation?
We do. Thank you, Mr. Grody, and good evening, Commissioners. My name is Michael Iona. I'll be presenting the staff report on behalf of the Planning Department. As stated, the application is for a final development plan approval, and that would allow for the construction of a project that consists of 66 townhome units on the site located at 3431 Springdale Road. There is some relevant history as it pertains to this application, and that is that in late 2020, there was a site plan that was approved. It's the preliminary development plan and the zone change. That is the first part of the PD process. So you have the PDP process, which is that where the concept of the development is fleshed out. The Board of Trustees takes final action for preliminary development plans and zone changes. And then the application before you this evening is the final development plan. That is an administrative approval, and the Zoning Commission, that's you all have the final action to approve or deny the final development plan tonight. So here you can see the site in question. It's an approximately 8.7, 8.8 acre site. It's located on the south side of Springdale Road. The site does have vehicular access from Grovewood Drive as well as Mel Carl Drive. The site in question is currently occupied by vacant land. The areas surrounding the site are currently occupied by single-family residential dwellings. The area to the northeast of the site in question is currently occupied by multifamily residential dwellings, and the area to the west is currently occupied by commercial development located along the Colerain Avenue corridor. Here you can see a picture of the site looking to the south. This is off of Springdale Road. This is the approximate location of the proposed vehicular access to the development. Here is a picture looking towards the site, looking to the southeast. Again, you can see that the site in question is currently occupied by heavy mature tree growth. And then here is a picture looking to the north from Mel Carl Drive. The zoning on the site in question, that was changed to, again, planned development residential late in 2020. The area to the east and a portion of the area to the north of the site is also zoned PDR. And then the areas to a portion of the area to the north, the immediate area to the south and west is currently zoned R6, which is a pretty high density residential zone that it permits detached single-family residential dwellings, two-family residential dwellings, triplexes, and even four-family multifamily dwellings. And then again, the area to the peripheral area to the southwest is currently B2, and that's that area around the intersection of Springdale Drive, or Springdale Road, and Colerain Avenue. This is the submitted development plan. It's very similar to what was approved, recommended for approval from you all and approved by the Board of Trustees. The big changes here are that the off-street parking that was located here, there was if you all remember, there was a variance request associated with the previous development for parking that was located here. Staff, as well as you all, as well as the Board of Trustees, denied that variance request and asked that they put that parking somewhere else on the site. They have relocated that parking. In fact, one of the conditions, and I'll go over each of the conditions and how they met the conditions as I go through this report, but one of the conditions was that in the final development plan that they remove those parking spaces and that they add additional off-street parking spaces within the development, and they in fact have done that. This is the submitted landscape plan that they provided. One of the conditions within the approved preliminary development plan was that a landscape plan be provided at the final development plan phase that sufficiently addresses preservation of existing tree canopy, preservation of open space, in addition to the provision of additional landscaping plantings needed to provide proper screening of the development from the surrounding single-family residential dwellings. The final development plan enclosed within their submitted application does address the preservation and existing mature trees. The grading plan shows that no grading or clearing shall occur within 10 feet of the site boundary. The applicants also indicated that they intend to preserve trees to the greatest extent possible in open space area A and B, except for those areas where those utility or grading, detention, sidewalk or amenities are required or shown. And then they further state that if any trees are removed within the 10-foot site boundary, they will replace it with they will replace that removed vegetation with 8 feet evergreen trees, spruce, arborvitae, and or pines, with a maximum separation of 12 feet between those trees. The landscaping plan is also intended to create a beautiful entry to Dunlap Woods. As indicated in the preliminary development phase of the proposal, you can see the applicant intends to provide significant landscaping at the gateway or the access to the development from Springdale Road. That landscaping does continue along the frontage of the site along Springdale Road and consists of fencing and plantings as well as lighting to enhance that area of the site. Additionally, the applicant also indicates the provision of a precast sculpted stone entrance gate or entrance feature to the development. One of the conditions within the preliminary development plan was that the final building elevation shall be in keeping with the design and materials contained within the submittal of the application of the preliminary development plan. As you can see here, these are the same elevations and floor plans that were submitted with the preliminary development plan. Other conditions that were part of the preliminary development plan that were addressed by the applicant tonight are those that are relevant to the HOA. If you all remember, there were concerns that transpired into conditions of approval for the preliminary development plan related to the HOA and how they would be responsible for maintenance and upkeep of the common areas. But also there was a condition related to the HOA requirements related to rental units, number of rental units that could be permitted with the development. As you can see here, the applicant has stated that prior to recording the final development plat for Dunlap Woods, they will submit a copy of the Homeowners Association covenants to the township for review. And they further state that the Homeowners Association for the development will be responsible for the maintenance of those open space areas, all the landscaping, the amenities within the development, and the yard areas around the units. And as it relates to the provision for maximum percentage of units allowable for rental, the applicant has stated that prior to recording the final plat for the proposed development, they will submit a copy of the Homeowners Association covenants to the township for review, and those documents will include a provision limiting the number of units that may be rented to 15% of the development. And then as it pertains to there were a few other conditions related to review agencies and compliance with their criteria As you all know, sometimes when we get those letters from the review agencies of the preliminary development plan, a lot of those conditions are typically your kind of standard conditions that get met later on in the process, but they like to call them out very early in the process. And as it relates to the conditions for the fire department, the applicant has stated that, they're going to meet the fire the fire department requirements as it relates to hydrants and any other water appurtenances, as well as their design. And then as it relates to the construction plans in the engineer's office, they're going to meet the requirements of the Hamilton County engineers for access, grading, drainage, et cetera. And then as it relates to the Department of Soil and Water, they'll meet all the required inspections and any other requirements that Soil and Water has as they get into some of the finer details related to the subdivision and build out of the property. As it pertains to the recommendation of staff, staff is recommending approval of the proposed final development plan subject to one condition, and that is that a street lighting district be set up for the development in accordance with the standards of Colerain Township. This is something that came up, I think, at the zoning commission, but it didn't make it into the recommendations. And then I think it also came up at the Board of Trustees. So that's something that we're asking with new development. The Northbrook area has been very adamant about street lighting and street lighting districts in their neighborhood. And as such, we'd like to follow through on that. So that's the condition of approval and recommendation from staff. And then just a little additional information. I just want to note for anybody out there in TV land as well as anybody here tonight that, a final development plan locks in the site plan. So everything you see here tonight is what will be required to be developed. Any amendment has to go back through the preliminary development plan process outlined in the zoning resolution, which includes going all the way back to the beginning of this process, depending on how large the amendment might be. Moderate amendments come back to you all, and then very, 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 very small amendments, I think, can be done administratively, but they're very, we're talking a game of inches here. But anything that's major that would really change the site plan, change the intensity, change the density, additional screening, buffering, et cetera, from what's approved here tonight would be required to go back through the review process, which includes oversight from you all and or the Board of Trustees. So that's all for the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Iona?
No.
Nope. Nope.
Okay. Do we have the applicant present? Would they like to make a presentation? If you'll state your name, sir, and your address, and spell your last name, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Scott Huber, Huber. I'm a site civil engineer with Abercrombie & Associates, 8111 Cheviot Road, Suite 200, 45247. Also with me tonight is Mr. Craig Rassi. He's with the developer, so he's available for any questions tonight, if you have any. But I don't have any formal presentation. We've all read the staff report, and staff did a very good presentation. We agree with those comments, and I believe in your package you've seen the responses from the developer, how he's going to address the conditions. So really we're just asking for your approval tonight, and we're available for any questions that you might have.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Mr. Huber?
I have one. What type of fence is it that's going along Springdale Road? Is it a split rail?
From what I remember, it was a split rail. I can pull it up. It's a split rail. I think it was a vinyl split rail white fence.
It was
Or you can see right there.
more of a, I would say, a modern-looking split rail instead of your traditional post with the holes in the side, but it is like a double board fence there, similar to a split rail, but it's probably not the
Yeah.
conventional one that you're seeing where there's holes in the side and the horizontal members go into the hole. It's probably mounted on that post.
So the property that's next door on Springdale has a chain link fence, and then this property has, I'm just gonna call it split rail, and it's in a diagonal. Is there any way to, instead of stopping the fence here, to connect as close to the chain link fence, just to have a uniformity, if you will, of the front part of this property?
Are you talking to the property would be to the northeast?
So it would be where you see lot 50, the back right corner of that is approximately where the next door neighbor on Springdale, which is the Spectrum Internet House,
Okay, gotcha.
to have some type of where the fence just isn't ending right at Springdale, then you have a gap in fencing and then the chain link, just to continue that across the back of I believe it's 49, 50, and 51.
Our fencing is gonna be on the frontage of Springdale, but you actually want us to turn the corner, head toward the back of the property and hook up with
Just
that.
to where that property is, just so you have it, the way that it is with the angle of your parcel, to me, it would make for a better look to, instead of stopping that right at Springdale at the edge of the property there, since you angle back, to have that angle back with it. It kinda just
That request
closes
seems
that.
reasonable. The only thing I'd be a little hesitant about it is, there's some tree line and buffering that we're using there. We're not disturbing it, the vegetation that we're disturbing along that property line. I'd be a little hesitant to cut, vegetation down and put a fence up. But I would say if it's, if we don't have to do that, I would think that's a reasonable request. But I'd be a little concerned about cutting vegetation down and then now all of a sudden the neighbor comes out and says, hey, I thought this was gonna be undisturbed. And-
Well, it's not an actual neighbor. It is a Spectrum Internet hub, so there's no one that lives in
Is
that
it a
house.
business, really?
Right, and the vegetation on that property is pretty shabby as it is, so preserving that, I can't see wanting to preserve what's there anyways. But it would kind of give a clean, uniform look to the front of your property.
Commissioner McMullen, just for reference here, you're talking about where the laser pointer is,
Yep.
Going
just
down
that-
here?
Just that
and
little
you're,
tiny,
and you're saying this little square here is it's a business? All right, so, maybe it could be to the greatest extent possible, that you hook it up, and then staff could do a check to make sure that, to the greatest extent possible, the fence was connected in that area?
I'd say that's fair.
Is that a fair?
Yes.
Something, because we can follow through with it, we're gonna follow through with the HOA conditions, and we want to get more involved in checking plans as they get approved. So, if that's amenable to you, I'm just trying to
right.
troubleshoot here and
Absolutely.
think about what we could do to tie that up. I think it's a great idea.
Craig Rassi with Ryan Home. Last name Rassi, R-A-S-S-I, 8622 Jacqueline Drive, Westchester, Ohio. The only thing I would bring up on that's actually gonna be someone's lot, like not the homeowners association. That lot line, if you pull up the site there, like it's gonna be someone's. Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but on the
Well, yeah, there's no open space on that west line.
So that's gonna be the property line of lot 51 who purchases that. So if that fence gets put in there, that's then necessarily their responsibility, not the homeowner association responsibility.
So where does the property line for lot 51 on this side of the property end?
It's got, if I'm correct, it goes to the, it's gonna be,
It goes to that dark horizontal line, is that what you're talking about here on?
yeah.
So lot 51 generally comes along here wherever the right-of-way, well, probably down here where the right-of-way is, and then it shoots back here, and then goes like that. This is all lot 51, depending on where this where this right-of-way line is. Not sure if it's here, back here more, but, that their corner is like right, right here.
So lot 51 and lot 1 will be oversized lots compared to the rest of the development?
I mean, so it appears though that some of the landscape here is located, that the HOA be required to maintain is located across lots. I mean, there's also some type of public improvement with so on lot 51, there's, or I think on one of the lots, a handful of the lots, there's mailboxes, the off-street parking spaces and all that stuff. I mean, if it's possible, and again, the fence may not be possible, but if it was possible, I think you could put that maintenance into the HOA document.
I would say yes. I mean, if you look at the square footage of lot 50, or lot 1, it's 5,700 square feet. And you look at the square footage of lot 51, it's slightly over 6,000 square feet. So those are a lot larger than the 2,300 or the 3,400 square foot lots. So those are larger, just probably because it's a corner lot and you have to meet a double front yard. There's a front yard setback here and a front yard setback there. So we're showing a 30-foot, setback, off of here for lot 51, and we're showing a 48-foot setback for lot 51. And I don't believe that's changed from the preliminary plan. I think that's
It hasn't.
been like that, those lot sizes.
Yeah, I agree if we can, it's just that depending on the maintenance side of it, that's all I would.
Yeah,
It could
yeah.
possibly be not necessarily the homeowner association's open space, it's actually on some property.
Yeah.
Right, I can't imagine that the persons who purchased those lots wouldn't be opposed to having the fencing on the backside of their property as well. I mean, it will look great, and ultimately having fencing would probably raise their property assessments as well, just the value of their property having it. I think it would just give a nice, clean look, and this is the first that we're seeing the fencing and what the entrance will look like, and I think it looks great. It would just be nice to, since it ends on this side, on your property line, I understand here, but just taking it a little bit farther just to really show where your property is ending and where the next door neighbor is beginning.
Anything further, Mr. McMillan?
No, not for me.
Okay. Other commissioners, any other comments or questions?
I do have a question. I guess it's probably more for the developer, Ryan. How do you plan on policing this, especially once you're gone, the 15% rental? How do you do that? If there's 15 people renting and you find a 16th person rented, are you going to go throw the people out and say you can't live here because we have 16 people? I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, and we discussed this when we had the original zoning commission, and I'm no attorney, and I don't know, I can't speak for the legality of that, but what we can do is we're putting it in the HOA requirement with the homeowner association that will be taking care of it. I'm not sure if they.
I think for us, as far as administration, I mean, you do these things, you have to do things like this often, and I've done it in other cities. I mean, we won't be out there like checking every month and having them send us rent things. But if we notice that residents start to come in and say, gosh, there's a lot of rentals here, then maybe we got to go to the books and say, hey, look, you said 15%. And then we would go out there if it became an issue. But we felt it was necessary to draw a line in the sand. Well, they may get away with it for a couple months, but if it becomes an issue, which rentals can do, and there's a concern from the community and just the surrounding areas about rentals here, we felt that the condition was necessary, and that if things did, become an issue, then we always have that line in the sand to go back to and say, look, show us what's going on here. We want to go in and see, whatever, go in and
How do
check.
you do that if you don't notice it until 30% of it's rental? How do How do you
Right.
go in and say, okay, you and you, get out of here, but you can stay?
I don't think we're
That's
gonna.
tough.
I don't think we do a lottery, but it would be something that if we became cognizant of it, you know, I don't think there's a black and white, this is how you enforce that. But it's something that we felt, strongly enough about as staff, and I think you all as zoning commissioners and the trustees felt strongly enough about it that we wanted to have a line in the sand for rentals and not just leave it open, for interpretation and at some point to, you know, have this development start off as, you know, all market rate people living there, and then all of a sudden, you know, without having that line in the sand, it becomes all rental within, you know, 10 years, 5 years, or somebody comes in, likes the work you do, buys it all, and then makes it rental, which can happen in other places. So we felt strongly enough as staff to recommend something like that, and try to draw that line in the sand. You're right, administration would be, it's not gonna be easy, but it's something that we felt strong enough that we wanted to have on the books. And, you know, if issues arise on the site, then we can go back and visit the subject. And, you know, if they have 25% for 6 or 7 months until leases end, then we'll slowly get them back to where they need to be to make sure that, you know, issues aren't happening on the site.
Part of those documents will state how that process, how they need to let the HOA
Yeah.
know that they are, and so that they can keep track of what those percentages are.
And when we do the review, you're right. So when we do the review, it's something that we would want to maybe look at a reporting once a month. If, you know, most HOAs, if you have a condo, if you want to rent it, you go to the HOA. You know, you say, hey, I'm going to rent my unit, and that would be some type of structure that you'd have there, and then we could find a way to do some reporting on it. But, you know, if somebody does a handshake lease agreement to somebody or something, it, you know, but the goal is to, on the face of it, you know, try to work as well as possible. And hopefully the HOA and all the players will be honest, but if they're not and issues are happening on the site, you know, we'll have to go in and dig in and figure out what's going on.
Wouldn't part of that administration of that 15% be falling upon the HOA and also the property manager that they might hire to take care of all of their physical and financial needs within the HOA?
That could be, yeah, that sounds like a good start, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the condition reads that they would give it to us to review, and we could sit down and actually dig in on what the exact wording will be when you all get to that point.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none. This is an item that we do not have to have a public hearing on due to the fact that we had that on the preliminary development plan, so we don't need that this evening. Did you want to find out who this person is that entered?
Hello,
Hi, how are you?
how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, and you?
Very good. So are you here to speak at the hearing, or do you have questions about the development?
I do.
Okay, so this is an administrative function, and I will leave it at the, to the board to decide if you all want to hear.
I did a letter.
Excuse me? To notify you of the time and date of the hearing, just in case you wanted to attend or be present to hear what was being presented. So I would leave it up to the board. If you all decide that you want to take testimony or hear anything, it's up to you.
Just to clarify, ma'am, what Mr. Iona is saying is that the public hearing was held at the preliminary development stage when we met several months ago about this topic. And typically, when it comes back like this evening with a final development plan, that there is no public hearing permitted or provided for. So what Mr. Iona is saying is if the commissioners want to allow that, we can do so. So commissioners, do you have any opposition to allowing this young lady to speak, or are we ready to move on?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on myself.
Well, can I make one statement? Since the public hearing,
Ma'am, you have to, since we're on air, you have to come up to the phone.
I believe in good faith. I mean, as staff, you know, we did say at the meeting, and I remember this individual had been at that meeting, and we said, you know, hey, this is the first part of it, if you want to come back to the second meeting, that we would be open to it. And, I would advocate that we allow, I forget, what's your name? Ms. King to speak tonight.
Okay.
She showed up and, so I think staff's recommendation would be to allow her to provide some testimony and/or ask questions about the development. Because at the preliminary development plan, I do remember us talking about, the second phase and, so.
So then it would prompt us to entertain a motion to open public hearing this evening.
Yes.
Can we have such a motion if there is?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
Motion
Okay.
second. Motion is to open up public hearing and allow the public to speak at tonight's meeting. Commissioner Faring?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner McMullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Gehring?
No.
Commissioner Grody?
No,
Okay.
but
Motion passes.
passes.
Would you like to go ahead and provide some testimony?
Okay. If you, ma'am, if you, one, could lower the mask, and secondly, if you would state your name and spell your name and give us your address, please.
No problem. Sharen, King, K-I-N-G, Sharen King, 9802 Alcohol Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45251.
Mike, she needs the microphone on.
Can you press the button right there in front of you for the microphone? It's that, yep, got it.
Thank you.
There it is, okay.
Thank you, Commissioner
Could you restate
McMullen.
your name and,
It's Sharen.
okay.
I can hear it. King, K-I-N-G. It's S like Sam, H-A-R-E-N. King, and it's 9802 Mel Carl Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45251. Thank you for the commissioners who voted yes. For those who voted nay, that is your right. But since the first hearing, there's been some things that have occurred in our development, specifically on my street. I was not available to send things because I'm fighting breast cancer. So I did call the office once, but I've been back and forth in the hospital. But in good faith, I want the development on Springdale to be developed. But keep it in mind that it's not just about developing a property as much as it becoming a part of the community. And the first hearing I came to, that person misrepresented himself. So there are two things I want to talk on. HOA and what they're currently doing to our properties while they're just doing surveying. And I can show you pictures. So since that time, the folks who own the land, the church, we have a relationship. From them cleaning up, from destruction in the past. They came to do surveys. They knocked down trees, no problem, but they left a tree hanging precariously over my property and the property next door. So I went to the fellow driving the backhoe, asking, are you gonna leave that tree like that? And he wouldn't talk to me. So I came in the house, I called the state's attorney general's office and asked, what should I do? They said, ask who's doing it, take the information, record it, call the police, make sure there's an incident report in case that tree falls. We've had 3 incidents in 10 years of trees falling from that same exact, maybe 10 yards. He wouldn't give me his name. I called the church. They came over, and they were appalled. I have pictures of the tree. I called the office, I called HPA, no one returned my phone call. So the church decided they would pay for it. And when they were contracting tree companies, they finally came and knocked down the tree. So okay, they came, they knocked down the tree. But from the hearing, they stated they were going to be doing this in good faith, keeping in mind the neighbors. I've been out of town. I returned this weekend, and now there's a whole other row of trees and shrubs, and my fence is down. So these are the folks that you're about to vote on. They're going to come into our community, and they say they're going to do the right thing. They're not doing the right thing while they're surveying. They are disruptive, they're rude, and they're destroying our properties. I didn't even know it until I got the car today, that they were again there. And the whole side of my yard, the fence is knocked down. And there's trees and shrubs hanging over the fence. So I can only wonder, based on their production at this point, what will happen when they have carte blanche to go there and develop. Secondly, when I was here, it was a vote on HOA. Now, you don't legally have to allow them to have an HOA. They could have a POA. The number one issue we have in Colerain Township is renters. Renters who are not taking care of properties, absentee owners who don't give a darn, and the trash and the littering. Yes, this will be a new construction, but you don't legally have to have a HOA. You can have a POA, which would mean that the public, a trustee, a chairperson, business owner, the church, the people that are in that community, someone from the Northbrook Association can sit on that. And I say that because HPA Development has horrible reviews on their HOA from present developments. If you want, I can read them to you. I can email them to you. But they have, these are straight from residents, excuse me, who currently live in their communities. I forgot my glasses. So HPA is the developer of our neighborhood, Ambleside Meadows, that my family and I live in. We are very disappointed in its deceptive marketing for the neighborhood and the way it is managing the neighborhood, as the developer still controls the majority voting rights on the HOA board. The neighborhood was marketed as one that would enjoy beautiful green spaces, common areas, and a paved walking path to connect the park next to our neighborhood. Instead, we have a gravel path that is dangerous, and most of the common areas are weed-infested eyesores. The developer will not engage with homeowners about any concerns, rather hiding behind the property manager hired to handle HOA business. I would never have moved here knowing what I know now. That's Jennifer Frost. Another resident writes, I'm a resident of Ambleside Meadows. This HPA development is currently running our board. And let me tell you, if I knew this was how this neighborhood would be run, I would have chosen differently. It's a joke, really. They don't maintain the landscaping of the neighborhood, nor do they ensure that the residents maintain their yards properly. The governor of Ohio has issued an order that the pools may be open. This is last summer. There was an email sent a month ago that stated our neighborhood pool would open based on the following. We have to pay $25,000. The residents of neighborhoods chock full of families being told it would cost $25,000 to open our pool, and we need to hire an attendant. None of this was told to us. Do so, and they just aren't going to open. There was zero attempt to get creative or find a way to make it happen. We know there must be an emergency fund somewhere. It is pandemic, not emergency. Is there some sort of bonus the board members that are part of this development group, they don't spend the HOA dues? Is there some sort of way? Where are our HOA dues going? I am curious where their salaries affected. I guarantee they have pools or a place to swim this summer, so I guess all the residents in our neighborhood don't count. Upon resolution of above issues, I will amend this. So we're getting into bed with someone who doesn't take care of their HOAs where they already are. They've already damaged the property adjacent to my property and the property next door to me. And you're gonna vote on whether or not to have another residential neighborhood I get it. I've lived here. I grew up playing in those woods. But I've also lived other places where the Economic Development Committee does a better job of vetting who comes before us. Each of these, the last two developers, had horrible reviews. The last one was being sued in 13 states. So this is just the basis of me just looking for an hour. What if I delved into it? So I just think that this may be the final hearing, but why are we getting into bed with more individuals who, I mean, are there set-asides? I know that economic development's job is to make sure that the city or township has viable businesses, real estate, community engagement. I don't see how HPA fits that bill. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. King.
All right.
Questions, comments? Well, wait a minute. Seeing no one else, we need a motion to close public hearing, please.
I'll make a motion that we close.
I'll second.
Motion to close public hearing. Commissioner Fairing?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Grody?
Yes. Okay, commissioners, any comments, questions, or anything in relation to what you just heard or this matter in general?
I'll touch base on just some of those things. So the maintenance issues, well, for one, the pool. There's no swimming pool here. So some of those comments, Two, maintenance. Maintenance is a property maintenance thing. If property maintenance is issue on the development, whether it's the open space, whether it's sidewalks, to soffits, gutters, windows, et cetera, that's property maintenance just like it is in any other development. If there's issues with maintenance, we go out, we cite that property owner, they get a violation, they bring it into compliance, or they go to housing court, or we abate it as the township, just like we do on every other property in Colerain Township. And then as far as HOA, the HOA is something that's going to be reviewed and by staff. And then HOA documents are also reviewed by Hamilton County to ensure the proper contents are in those documents. Hamilton County leads the charge in that review. We can add things as we feel necessary, like as it pertains to the rental restriction. I don't think Ms. King maybe caught that. She came in late, so I don't think she saw that restriction and that condition where we restricted the rental percentage to 15% of the units. But that is one of the, with regard to the HOA, I think we did touch on the rental issue, and then Hamilton County ensures that all the right things are in those HOA documents to, make sure that the community, the development will, have the right documents.
Okay.
I have a question or comment. Could you explain the HOA and why it is necessary?
The homeowners association?
The HOA, what is its main function
The
in
homeowner.
terms of this whole thing?
So the homeowners association would be in charge of the maintenance. They would collect dues for the maintenance of the common areas, the open space areas, and things like that through the development. So if you look at the site plan here, you can see that there is 2 detention ponds. There's open space area A, B. There's perimeter landscaping. There's the signage and entry feature along Springdale Road, along with that fence, and then the landscaping along both sides of the entrance on Springdale. There's a detention pond, so there's some of those shared utilities and drainage facilities. So the HOA would be in charge of that.
Maintaining.
So making sure that that all their drainage and infrastructure works. And then they also have the accessory function of doing things like, maybe enforcing like our rental type of percentage or other things that they see necessary within their community for the benefit of its residents.
Okay, thank you.
So it's kind of a dual purpose.
Mr. Rassi, a question. 2 questions. Are you familiar with someone from your company going in there and doing what this lady described about cutting down foliage and trees and so on and so forth?
So I'm with Ryan Holmes. That wasn't been part of my company, but with HBA, I am aware of they went in to do clearing, to do soil samples, to do soils. And what happened when we were notified, she notified the current owner of the property. They sent an email. We got a company. The HPA actually sent out the tree. They were the ones that paid for that tree to get cut down. It was not the church that did that. So we got notified of it. As soon as we got notified, they sent out someone to go take care of it. They took care of it, I think, within 2 days of hearing of it.
Well, apparently, according to Ms. King, is that her fence that was damaged, or is that the,
I'm not aware of what she just mentioned about a fence being damaged just in the last day or so.
Okay.
I've not been aware of any of that.
so if you can make note of that and perhaps follow up on that?
Sure.
Okay. And then the second question is, at what point do the property owners take over with the HOA as opposed to the developer initially starting the HOA?
The developer starts as running the HOA, and I'm not sure what the percentage is that it'll be part of the HOA documents that says when that will then take over to
Okay.
the homeowners.
Typically, what is that?
I think it's typically something like 85% of the residents,
Okay.
once they've closed, of when that time frame would be, then to have votes and people to then start taking on the
And that's when they start governing
And
themselves?
then there's a transition time frame, correct?
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I got just one quick one. Does the HOA do anything with the structures themselves? Any maintenance to that? They're strictly just
They're
grounds?
strictly for the community. The HOA will also be responsible for the grass cutting and snow removal on the driveways.
What about the exteriors of all the buildings?
That will be on the homeowners. That's part of the homeowners.
Okay. Seeing that, Mr. Ferring, that varies from HOA to
Yeah,
HOA, is
no, I
what's written
understand.
in their documents, you know. Okay, any
Yes.
other comments?
Back to the fence for Ms. King. She stated that it was for her property and her next-door neighbor's fence were damaged. Who is going to repair? And who is going to make sure that it doesn't happen to any other neighbors? And if it does, who will repair their fences and property?
Yeah, I mean, we will definitely can follow up with Ms. King and I'll go there after the meeting and take a look and see what had transpired. I've not been notified of anything. I was not aware, and I'm not sure if Scott, you knew of anyone else out there in the last 2 days. I was not, that someone else was going out there.
But moving forward, who ensures that there's no damage, and if there is, who takes care of it?
It would be part of the HPA that they're going to be the ones that will be purchasing the property and then developing the property. So if there is something to damage, then that contact would go to the person that owns the property, and then they would be the ones that would need to rectify it and meet with those people.
And then does Ryan Holmes, do you ensure that HBA is holding up their end of the bargain of repairing these fences and any damage that's done for the surrounding neighbors? Who ensures that they just don't drop the ball on this?
I mean, they will be the property owner of the property, and they're going to be developing it to the site plans that we're going over. I mean, we won't be purchasing any lots or selling any homes in here till the community is done and they have done what they need to do in order to, go through the approvals and record the lot. So it is them. I mean, obviously we want to come in and build a beautiful community for you guys in Colerain Township, and without getting to that point, we can't do that. So that's part of our responsibility as a partner with them to make sure that, once again, that they're developing it to the right way around, the property how it's supposed to be. Hence, what we're trying to do with the open space to not have those areas be disturbed.
I think it would be, given the size of the site, it's like, there's hundreds, if not thousands of trees on that site. And it's much like if you own a property and you have 5 trees on your property, you cut a tree down, it hits the neighbor's fence, you go over, you say, hey, I knocked your fence down, and you make it right, and you fix their fence because it was your tree. Given the number of trees on this site, the fact that there's probably not been a lot of maintenance, emerald ash borer, I'm sure there's a lot of dead trees on this site and around the property lines. So there may be accidents. Accidents do happen. It sounds like an accident's already happened. and they've made a good faith effort to fix that tree. And then, you know, hopefully, if the fence is an issue, that they've been notified that they'll fix that. And that's something that we as staff can follow up on.
Right, I'm concerned because in her statement, she mentioned that she called HBA and they had never returned her call. So if we're at the very beginning of this process and there's already issues, we're not doing a good stewardship of the surrounding property owners to ensure that they're not going to have any damage to their property during this process. It's 10 feet, so
But keep-
there's a lot of error within 10 feet.
Keep in mind, it just gets to be a sticky wicket too, because this property is apparently sat idle for years, as she admitted, which means, depending upon how long her fence is up, I ran into this with a neighbor once, the fences can actually move. I mean, the ground moves as water moves it. And if you give a property for 10, 15, 20 years, I had a neighbor that got quite upset because the surveyors came in and put a peg on the other side, on her side of the fence, okay, which meant it was my fence, okay, because it had moved over the years. And she was quite upset with, you know, with this peg on her property as she saw it. I didn't make her take her fence down. I could have, okay? So a lot of these things get to be sticky wickets in that she may have owned the fence at one time, she may have put it up, but depending upon where the surveyor says the property line is, that fence may not be hers anymore. Now, I don't know that we want to get into that kind of a situation, and we don't want to put the onus on HOA, on this group to say, you've got to fix every fence, because those fences may have moved, okay? And so I think within reason, we got to look to Mike to say, Mike, have somebody out there to check to see whose responsibility it is.
We don't know said condition of the fence either, so it's, you know, these things do happen.
These kind of disputes are going to come, and frankly, if the situation happens in this case, it's happened in my case, if I was a very upset neighbor, I mean, I could come to meeting after meeting and complain that, you know, or she would come to meetings after meeting and complain that I stole her fence, that kind of thing, so.
Mr. Rassi, one additional question. I thought I picked up from one of your comments. Has HPA not purchased this property yet?
No, they have not yet. It's still the church's property. That's why she reached out to the owner of the property at the time.
Okay.
The owner gave permission for them to go on to do the soil samples.
Even with, assuming there's positive passage of this final development plan tonight, HPA could still walk away from it,
Could still walk, I mean, they have
walk away from the whole development,
they could, yes.
okay? Then that begs the next question. If there has been, you know, site surveys and surveyors and whatever, they're clearing some of whatever to do their work, who's going to take care of that? If HPA walks away from it?
Well, the clearing was to allow for the due diligence of the property to make sure that it's viable for the project to be able to put streets in where you need to, build houses where you need to,
So the church had to give them permission to do that?
which they did.
Okay. So if HPA walks away from it, whose responsibility is to take care of whatever damage there may have been?
It's the church's, it's the church's responsibility, it's on their property.
Okay.
But I guess let me clarify, the damage you're saying is the trees that were knocked down on the property?
Well, whatever, whatever.
Yeah, once again, I mean, I think previously when Graham, you know, who was speaking for HBA, I mean, we want to be good neighbors. You know, we were notified of it. Graham got notified. He went out there, had a tree company come out and take care of it. So once again, the fence thing is new. We'll address it the same way. We'll go out and dive into it and figure out what happened and
To your knowledge, has HPA and the church come to an agreement on the purchase price that they're
Yeah.
going to do it?
yes, there's a contract and there's
Okay.
dates already set
Okay.
for the purchase of it, correct?
Okay. So it's a matter of formalities and changing money?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments, whatever from the commissioners?
No.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion on case number ZA 2021-03 Dunlap Woods, whatever that motion may be.
I'll make a motion to approve case ZA 2021-03 Dunlap Woods.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to approve, as I understood
Yes.
the motion, this case that is before us. Before I ask for additional comments or questions on the part of the commissioners, Ms. McMullen, do you feel there's a need to add anything to that motion regarding the piece of fencing that you were referring to earlier in the meeting? Or Mr. Iona, do we have enough to work with that we don't have to formally add it into the motion?
Well, I think you should put it in the motion. If you desire, if you want a condition for the fence, I think we should put it in the motion.
I would like to amend and put a condition to the best of their ability to extend that front fence line at a diagonal as much as they can to get to the Spectrum house that's next door.
Okay, so since you were the person that made the motion, we can accept that. Mrs. Smith, hearing that addition, do you still hold to your second?
Yes.
You do, okay. Now, commissioners, any further comment, questions, or anything regarding the motion? Anything that anybody needs explained? So again, the motion is to approve case ZA 2021-03 Dunlap Woods as recommended by our staff, and to add appropriate language that we'll trust Mr. Iona will do regarding that additional piece of fencing on the Springdale Road side of the property.
Yes.
Okay? Can we have a roll call, please?
This motion to approve with condition. Commissioner Faring,
No.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner McMullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Gehring,
Yes,
Commissioner Grody.
Yes. So the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Mr. Iona, items 5 through 10 on the agenda. Do we have any business in any of those areas?
We do not have any business for those areas.
Okay. And the next meeting is April the 20th,
Yes, if needed.
if needed.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we've got that scheduled. Commissioners, any comments from any of you as to anything you'd like to bring to the attention?
I'd like to make one comment if I could. You know, I'm a big proponent of input into these meetings. But I was on the school board, and I've served on the zoning commission in Green Township for a number of years. And one of the things that I've learned over that time is that you've got to establish a process for the meetings in order to maintain order. I've been in some pretty raucous meetings, let's just put it that way, okay? And the reason I voted no, and the reason I mentioned that for having this young lady talk was not because I didn't want to hear her, but the fact of the matter is she was 30 minutes late, and I'm sorry for health conditions, but she was 30 minutes late and didn't sign the sheet. Those are all elements that we require, and if we break our protocol, then it opens the door for anybody at any time to come in and disrupt the meeting, our meetings, and say, listen to me. And so I just want to caution us to be careful of that kind of a protocol adjustment, that's all.
I appreciate you expressing it that way, Mr. Gehring, and that's exactly the way I felt, was that we had to maintain a protocol, and that's why I voted no also, even though my heart said we should listen to this young lady or anybody else, but a process is a process. Okay, could we have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We can just have a voice vote. All in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. We stand